No, not yet. We're good. We're
Okay,
just
good.
loading up right
I
now.
just saw live as I said that.
All good. No worries. Yeah, it takes a second to load, so
Okay.
we're all right. Alrighty, good morning. I should say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Musician Monday. I'm joined today by GRS Assistant Principal Viola Barb Corbato. Barb, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Corey?
You know, it's been a week so far. For those of you who don't know, unfortunately, we had a passing in our orchestra this weekend. Steve Van Ravensway, longtime GRS cellist, passed away on Saturday. So our hearts are a little heavy today, but we're still here. We're still gonna have this conversation, and we're gonna talk about Steve a little bit today too.
Yeah.
So, Barb, thank you for being here. It's great to see you when I get the chance to. I've known you. I feel like I've known you're probably one of the first musicians I met during my time here. So I feel like we're just old friends. That's good.
Yeah, I've been in the orchestra, I think over 25 years.
That's
Several years past 25 years. I know that.
that's amazing. So 25 years. That's a great chunk of history with the GRS. I bet that's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of changes. I worked with Catherine Comey when I first got here, and then of course David Lockington, and now Marcelo Leninger. And so it's been really wonderful to work with those three just great musicians.
I think that's really unique too because you have every they all have their interpretations of how music should be played, and the GRS is a great legacy of leadership and just skill in general. So um, I that's just a really cool experience for you that you got to experience three generations of our history.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really just a wonderful time, and I've loved seeing how the orchestra has grown and how the city's grown. It's been really wonderful to kind of settle down in Grand Rapids. When I joined the orchestra, I don't think I thought that I would land here as my permanent home, but I'm so glad I did because Grand Rapids is just such a great place, lovely community, and the symphony is just a wonderful family.
That's one thing I've heard recurring from everyone who I interview is that the family feel of the orchestra, and I think that's really special. I think when you get people, especially musicians, because music is such an emotional art form. I mean, you're essentially bonding over the art form and each other, and that's how you develop those close knit relationships.
Yeah, and with music, there's nonverbal communication as you're playing.
Hmm.
I mean, clearly the conductor is conducting, that's nonverbal, but also just, in terms of our stand partner, how we communicate in terms of playing together, and a lot of that is nonverbal. And so it's 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 a really uh, it's just a really great family and communicating with them. Yeah.
I love that, and I want to remind folks if you have any questions during this video, feel free to type it in the chat, and we'll definitely try to address it at the end of our session here. So, Barb, you play viola. How did you choose? How did you choose the viola, or did it choose you? Should I ask?
Well, so when I was in fourth grade, my elementary school had group lessons, and um, they let us choose one of the string instruments. And so I thought about the violin, and like everybody was playing the violin. Like it just, and also the E string on the violin, I just found that to just be a little on the high side. I found it not very pleasant to me. And that could have been because, beginning violin E strings it's not always the most lovely sound. And
Hmm.
then the cello, I thought I loved the sound of the cello, the dark sound of the cello, but I also didn't want to lug it around.
Hmm.
So just for practical reasons, I chose the viola. And I think there was just one or two of us in that class that played the viola, so I was definitely, you know, uh, just a little different there. And it turned out I really loved the sound. I think the sound of the viola really matches the speaking voice. And I think it matches like my speaking voice also, just how just the timbre and also just the pitch. So and as I was when I was younger, I was a little shy. So the viola being kind of the same as my own voice, it helped me to communicate a little bit better just with my music because I felt like that was a little bit of my voice. And so that's how I chose the viola. And then I took viola lessons because I kind of caught on to it. And so my parents had me take private lessons. And then I joined our youth symphony when I was in high school. And I went to some lovely summer chamber music camps during high school time. And then in high school, I also went up, I spent one summer at Interlochen Fine Arts Camp.
Mhm.
That was pretty life changing for me. That's where I decided I wanted to be a professional musician. I played so many great symphonies that summer. I remember it was the summer of fifth symphonies, so we did like Prokofiev 5, Shostakovich 5, Beethoven 5, lots of fifth symphonies. Um, and so there is where I really decided that music was what I wanted to do for a career. And then after I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Michigan, where I studied with Donald McGinnis, and I got a bachelor's degree. And then I did my master's degree at University of Michigan with Yitzhak Schotten. And then I went down to Miami Beach, where I played in the New World Symphony for 3 years. And then I moved back up to Michigan, where I ultimately landed in the Grand Rapids Symphony. Yeah.
You've been all over the place. It's so wonderful. That's yeah, I don't I think you're the first one to mention Interlochen to me so far as one of their touching points. So I'll be curious to see if that pops up again anytime soon with some of our other orchestra members. But so your viola specifically, is there anything unique or anything you want to tell us about your specific viola that you play on?
Well, my viola is it's um it's got kind of unique shoulders. They actually are a little bit on the square side. Most shoulders are a little bit more rounded. And one of the things about the viola is it doesn't have a standard size. The violin is, if you take several violins, they're all going to be about pretty much the same size. The body's going to be the same size. The string length is going to be the same size. Everything is set up very, very close in size. And the same thing with the cello. Um, but the viola, well, with the violin and cello, the length of their strings and the tone, the pitch of their strings matches the size of their instrument.
Mhm.
So in terms of physics and the vibrations and the the resonance of them, if the viola were to be the size that was appropriate for the string pitches, it would be like 20 inches. Mine is about 16 and a half inches. So it would be probably 4 inches longer. And I would have to reach out, to play. And it's just not physically possible. Or we'd have to try to play it like a cello, but that would be too small. So a luthier is a string instrument maker. So luthiers, they uh, use different patterns, different sizes, different widths. So the width, it can be either thicker or thinner. And so like for example, my stand partner, Leslie Van Becker, our principal violist, her instrument, I think is 15 and a half or 15 and 3/4 instrument or inches. And so it's a little bit smaller than mine. Um, but in mine is 16 and 3/8 inches. So mine is almost an inch bigger than hers. And so if you saw them next to each other, they would look significantly different. But her viola is still it has great projection and has this wonderful warm beautiful sound. So luthiers just really try they experiment with sizes and widths and to in order to get the most they can get out of the viola without having it be 20 inches. So I don't know. I hope that made sense.
No, that's great. I learned so much just now in that little section. That's so cool that, and I like how it's almost like how a viola is really so unique in itself, but each one that's designed.
Yeah, each every viola is so different. Yeah, yeah.
And that's cool that you can collectively still come together as a section and play this beautiful thing as it should hopefully sound as the way a composer intended.
Yeah, and I think, one thing luthiers work for is to get that kind of lush, mellow, beautiful tone from the viola but that it also projects too. I think that's one of the challenges is to get the viola to project.
Perfect. I love that so much. Thank you for that. That's great. So do you have a favorite composer? I know that's a really loaded question from a
It
lot of
is.
musicians. Do you have somebody that you find yourself more inclined to respond to?
So much of it just depends on the day of the week, my mood. I've always loved Brahms. The Brahms chamber music is just some of the greatest music to play, and of course his symphonies are amazing. Um, and Mahler, I love Mahler. I also love Bach. The Bach Brandenburg concertos and the orchestral suites are some of my favorite things just to turn on and listen to if I need a pick me up just to feel good. So those are some of my favorites. And also a woman composer that I just love is Rebecca Clark. She was alive in the early 1900s and wrote just an amazing viola sonata. And she also wrote several short works for viola that are just really amazing. So she's another of my favorites.
That's awesome. People talk about Brahms a lot, and Brahms is so great. And also, we got to talk about he had a great beard too. Let's be honest about that
He
first.
did. It is true. So of course you relate to him. Yes.
I try to relate to the bearded composers, but no, Brahms is great. Mahler, Bach, everyone. I'll have to check out Rebecca Clark. You said
Yeah, Rebecca Clark.
I'm gonna have to listen for her now. That's great. So now we might be getting a little bit into some more somber conversation. Hopefully not, but I'm curious about your pre-performance ritual traditions. But I know that GRS cellist Steve Van Ravensway, who passed away this weekend, you have some unique kind of a pre-ritual, I guess, in a way that you want to talk about.
Yeah, one of the things when we arrive at the hall is unpacking our instruments, getting them out of the cases and getting a little warm up in and just getting settled before we go on stage. And just about everybody has kind of their favorite spot on the tables backstage or their favorite table that they automatically go and set their instruments on and get their instruments out. And my where I traditionally put my viola is the same little table that Steve was always at, and he'd be across from me, and we so often would just have wonderful conversations about the music or dogs or just how much it snowed in Michigan and how hard it was to drive around and just it it was always just really wonderful to just have these nice conversations with him. And I know that that's one of for me personally, that's one of the things I'm going to miss in addition to his amazing musicianship and just wonderful collegiality. He was a wonderful colleague. Working with him was just really just a wonderful thing. He was just a really wonderful person who we are just going to miss so much. And he was incredibly talented. I was thinking about this morning when we do our fifth grade concerts. There's instrument demos, and we go around, go play violins, the violin section plays something, and then the violas, then we go to the cellos, and often a member of the section will do an arrangement of something, and you know, a group will play the arrangement. And Steve did some really great arrangements, and I can't offhand think of the names of them, but I know every year there was some really great arrangements that the cellos did that Steve did those arrangements. So those were just really lovely. And yeah, and he also worked with Roger McNaughton, who a pianist, keyboard, and Susan Mora, who's a Grand Rapids Symphony violinist, and they did some trio things. Just played various gigs together, and yeah, so he had his fingers in lots of different types of music, and we're going to miss him so much. And I know our thoughts are so with his family and his wonderful wife, and we all are just heartbroken and going to miss him so much.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I didn't know Steve as well as you did. Obviously, I've only met Steve a few times in my life, and whenever we passed, we talked, and he was always a very friendly person. Someone I I just always felt comfortable around him. So that's really special too. And I'm glad that you have those memories with him, though, that you can think on and just and acknowledge and cherish.
Yeah, I think
So,
I think many of us in the orchestra just have many special memories of Steve that we will always cherish.
and it's another thing to know too that he had one of the longest tenures, I believe, the second longest tenure at the GRS. He was 44 years.
Yeah, yeah, which is almost half of the length of the orchestra because the orchestra is 90 years old. So he really was. He's been a big part of the orchestra, and just yeah, we're gonna miss him so much.
Definitely. So one question I always ask, if there was another instrument in the orchestra that you could choose to play, what do you think it would be?
I think probably the cello. If I, and part of that's, well, if I felt like lugging it around, I love the mellowness of and the singing quality of the cello. I just think, and there are so many wonderful pieces written for the cello. Also, I like the cello. Yeah.
That's excellent. You're probably the first person in I think the past 3 or 4 weeks that hasn't said French horn. So there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, French horn's been a big one. Everyone's just so I'm curious to see what'll. You're the one who changed the dynamic, and I like that. It's good. So obviously you live and breathe symphonic music for a career, but are there any or other styles of music that you really enjoy outside the classical realm?
If I'm driving around in my car and just need to listen to something not not work related, I tend to just gravitate to like 70s pop music, the things from my childhood, maybe a little bit early 80s. It just helps me just kind of let loose a little bit and brings back some nostalgia. So I think that's really what I tend to go to.
I get that, and this is kind of a side question, but thinking about classical music because it's what you do for a career now. Um, when you let's say, for example, you hear a classical piece on the radio or on Spotify or whatnot, do you tend to listen to something with like a more analytical ear when it's something that like a viola piece?
Yeah, I probably do. I mean, I think I just do automatically just because I'm trained to do that. So I think whenever, and maybe that's why when I'm not listening to classical music, I just go to 70s music because I don't analyze that at all.
Mhm.
Um,
You
but
just
with
rock it out.
classical music, I mean, I'm listening for are things together, are things in tune. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's automatic.
I get it. I'm a drummer, and whenever I hear a song, I'm always like, "Oh, the drum part. Okay, okay."
Uh-huh.
So you just want to but yeah, no, rock is where it's at. The classic stuff is good. Ruth Bilesma said the same thing a couple weeks ago when we talked to her.
Yep.
So I love that. If you could choose a career outside of being a professional musician, do you have any idea of what you'd want to do?
You know, as an adult, I've come to really love animals, and so I think I might go in. I might, if I had to choose something else, and maybe something in animal work. So yeah, I think that
Very good. My son is 3. He says when he grows up he wants to be an animal helper. So we're off to a good start. So.
excellent. Yeah,
So obviously the quarantine has changed things in so many ways for all of us here at the orchestra and at the offices as well. What sorts of things are you doing to kind of keep yourself centered through all this? Do you have any favorite activities or anything?
you know, I've been trying to just keep a little bit of a routine, doing some walking, and I do I I've actually enjoyed. I've cooked so many meals, just because we've, you know, often we usually have rehearsals in the evenings or concerts, and so I wouldn't really do much in terms of cooking, um, but so now I've cooked meals just about, you know, just about every night. It's been cooking, and which has been really nice. I've really enjoyed not being in a hurry when I'm cooking, and having time to just sit and just spend time with my husband eating dinner, rather than hurrying up and zipping off to rehearsal. I also like to knit, so I've gotten a lot of knitting projects done. That's the knitting is actually, I've found, helped me kind of just feel a little bit more centered. And if I'm feeling at all anxious about anything, just sitting and do the repetitive motion actually helps calm me down. And that's been a lot of fun. And it's also I feel like it's a little bit creative. So, but and I've also of course been practicing and trying to learn some new music. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I've heard the practice thing a whole bunch. Uh, Cooking is great. I love cooking. It's my de-stressor at home. It's what I do, just like to chill out and kind of unwind. Um, but what I want to ask about the practicing because heard some musicians say I'm going back and revisiting music that I haven't played in a couple of years and just enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it. I've heard some people say I'm learning new stuff just so I can keep growing. And I think growth works either way with that question. But do you find yourself practicing new things to innovate, or are you like revisiting things that you just haven't played in a while? Like what's the practice routine there?
I'm doing a little of both. I've been going through some of the Bach cello suites, which violists also play the Bach cello suites. So I've been going through those, but I've also been trying to learn the sixth cello suite, which I actually never learned. So that's something new that I've been working on, and I'm also working on the George Walker Viola Sonata. So that's a completely new piece to me. So that is the last couple weeks. That's been what I've really been focusing on, and I'm hoping to have an opportunity to play that sometime in the fall. So yeah, so kind of a little bit of both, and that's been really nice. It's been nice to just be able to choose everything that I've wanted to practice, because during the symphony season, I really focus on my symphony music, and that is what I practice, and I work on the things that are coming up the soonest. I'm working on those the most, but while still like looking ahead. But really, during the symphony season when we are performing so much, I'm it's all about the symphony music. So it has been nice to have time to work on viola music rather than just the symphony parts. I have to say I miss working on the symphony parts, because as an orchestra musician, it's really this is what I do. So I can't wait to get back to that.
We all feel that for sure, definitely. So my last question, and you kind of shared some memories earlier, specifically about Steve. But do you have any? It can be with about Steve or without Steve. Any memories that are really distinct in the front of your brain, being part of the orchestra?
You know, I think the things that I remember the most about memories of the orchestra are just the feeling of camaraderie.
Hmm.
And I feel like with Marcello at the helm, I've got a lot of more really recent musical memories.
Hmm.
Just feeling very connected to the entire orchestra, um, as we play, and feeling like our our energy and just collective sounds really are blending more than they ever have, in the past. So yeah, yeah.
I totally agree with that. I've been with the orchestra. I started working for the symphony when during David Lockington's last season, so I was there during the transition process, and then Marcello came along, and there's something there. There's something in the water right now. I'm telling you, with Marcello at the helm, there's a synergy. There's something really beautiful happening. Not to say that it doesn't happen any other times, but there's just something very very special every time you guys are on stage. So,
And of course, there were many special times with both Catherine and David,
yep.
and now with Marcello. So it's just it's been really really wonderful. And I know that Steve really enjoyed working with Marcello as we would have our conversations across the table. I know that he was very happy in the orchestra these last few years, and so his loss is just really so great. And I know all of our hearts are so heavy right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. So it looks like we are at the end of our session today. Barb, thank you so much for being here, for talking, for sharing memories of Steve. I'm sure that's going to be really comforting to folks who knew Steve, people who didn't know Steve. So thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we're definitely going to see you next time.
Thank you.